And welcome back in, you guys, to One Piece Chapter 1161, the post-game show. How this works is that I like to go through the comment section of the chapter review video just to see what everybody's talking about. The theories, the opinions, the agenda. We're here for all of it, and you guys are going to join me on this adventure. So, with that being said, hopping right into it, we got the top comment right here. It says, quote, "She beat off the guards all around her." Nice. Yeah, this is my fault. In the video, I said that Shaki beat off all the guards around her. And I'm gonna be honest, sometimes I do know the jokes I make. Sometimes it is purely accidental. And this was one of those times, I was editing the video and I heard myself say this, but I said, oh, of course, people will know exactly what I mean. And lo and behold, here we go. Yeah, I get it. Yeah. Maybe not the best choice of words, but it is correct. It is correct. She did beat the guards around her. Dragon is confirmed to be Garp's son. We no longer have to hear those theories of Dragon marrying Garp's daughter. What's funny is that I haven't really seen many of these theories around. I've heard like one or two people mention it, but I didn't realize it was such a profound theory within the community. But yes, in this chapter, Dragon does say, "Dad," the minute he sees Garp jumping above him. And so now, spinning off of that, I do wonder, what is Dragon's relationship to Garp? How was Garp as a father? Because I'm gonna be honest, right? In this era, with his #1 rival roaming the seas, trying to become Pirate King, with Rocksteady Zebek out there, and with not that many notable Marines by his side, minus Sengoku, Sudo, and Kong, it's like, I doubt he has really any time to be an actual father to Dragon. And it kind of goes back to like, how much does Dragon know about Garp? Did Garp train him? How's the mother relationship? Is the mother even alive? Who managed to tame Garp? These are all very valid questions. And it's funny because when I think about Dragon and Dragon's wife and Luffy, I'm like, okay, we'll get that flashback for sure. We'll realize who Luffy's mom is by the end of the series. But as far as Garp's wife, I feel like she might just be tossed to the wayside. But hey, I would love to be proven wrong. Maybe we'll get that in a spin-off series even. The TCB scans making Linlin just say, "Fuck," really loudly is killing me. Is that the correct translation, or did they just go rogue? I don't know. It's funny you mentioned this because I was reading through the chapter and I didn't realize Linlin actually said this until my second or third read through. And I was like, yo, that's hilarious, man. Garp tanks her fire attack and she's like, "Fuck this, dude. I am out of here. I am leaving." And I usually don't look at the replies because, sometimes they go off the rails or sometimes people just argue. But I did peep this one and it's hilarious. It just says, "No matter what, it's real to me." So this says, when they animate that Garp panel, the barbecue Linlin panel, we're gonna get some generational animation. I agree. And not just that, but I do thoroughly believe that we will get mini fights fleshed out here at God Valley when the anime gets here. Brother, Zoro versus Lucci. I'm sure most of you guys watched the anime. Dude, that was maybe 2 pages max in the manga. They made that a whole ass spectacle when the anime got to it. Like, they made that fight seem way more fantastical than it ever did in the manga. So yeah, I'm expecting some absolute fire when they get here. And I will sit on my laurels and say this, but I really hope they go the Demon Slayer route, the Dragon Ball route, the JJK route, and just make this a movie. Please, Toei. Dude, it's so easy to make money if you own the One Piece IP. Make it a movie. Hell, do the weekly anime, make it follow the manga 1-to-1, and then make the movie and flesh it out even more. It's that easy. Double dip, brother. I do not think any One Piece fan would actually complain about that. Also, I don't know how many people actually noticed this, but the panel where Garp is chasing down Whitebeard, Kaido, and Big Mom, that is actually a callback / reference to when Oda drew a what if where Ace, Sabo, and Luffy joined the Marines and Garp was chasing them down there too. You can see that the poses are almost damn near identical. So this comment says, "Saint Sommers is my favorite villain so far. A ruthless upgrade from Spandam. Trading incompetence for terrifying control. He commands the Knights of God and uses the thorn fruit to unleash dragon-shaped thorns with deadly precision." You're making him sound so cool. He doesn't exactly command the Knights of God. I do think that goes to Garling, but I like the way you're framing this though, brother. His cruelty is strategic, destroying schools, silencing dissent, and manipulating Elbaf's giants without remorse. Unlike Spandam, Sommers isn't just a puppet of power. He's its embodiment, making him a truly menacing antagonist. And I think you're missing one thing as well. You know, you listed all of this. I think you're missing one thing, and that's that Sommers is fun. Sommers is not only just fun, but he's a good-looking guy. You know, Spandam, I think we can all hold hands and sing Kumbaya and say Spandam is not exactly a looker, right? He's not exactly aura farming when he shows up. Even in a CP0 uniform, he's not aura farming. Sommers is. So yes, I think Sommers is a fantastic villain, and it's tough. You know, we're in this final saga, and I'm looking at my top 10 list of favorite characters, and I'm like, man, do I really have to make room for Sommers? I don't know, man, but he's making moves. If he gets back up next chapter, and if he does something spectacular, which he might not, then I will be absolutely eating it up. This comment says, Shanks hitting his head and being unconscious is a convenient plot so the Holy Knight couldn't immediately notice a second baby crying, playing, or laughing. Also, when the Roger Pirates would have taken those treasures, the baby would have started crying or making noises or laughing, which would have forced them to open the chest much earlier instead of waiting to get to the ship. Yes. And, you know, this kind of goes back to one of my original questions about this whole thing, but if they did see a baby in a treasure chest when they're about to leave the island, let's say they open it in this exact scenario, would they still take Shanks? Because I kind of think they would, you know, in between just leaving Shanks here to die and just bringing him aboard and maybe just dropping him off at the next island, I think they would take him. You know, the Roger Pirates are just kind of built different in my opinion. Roger definitely gains points in my book as a character for letting Rayleigh take the spotlight and get his bag. Yeah, I respect that out of Roger, man. You know, Roger, as much as he wants Shaki for himself, he knows that Shaki would not exactly be happy with him. She prefers Rayleigh, and he sees that from both of them, right? He sees both sides of the coin. He saw Shaki pass out and be sad because Rayleigh wasn't there, and he saw Rayleigh's reaction when Shaki got kidnapped, and of course he saw the love letter. Roger knew his place, and he just let them have it. And I like that. You know, I do like that a lot about Roger. This says, now we know why Shaki's so loved. She beat off all the guards single-handedly. Imagine what she'd do for her friends. Saint Maffy and the celestial dragons who sent her to retrieve Garling's children had no idea he actually had two. She grabbed baby Shamrock and left right away, not realizing baby Shanks was still lying there next to Dragon. When Garling finds out, he'd probably be furious with both Maffy and that celestial dragon, punish them harshly, maybe even kill them. This is an interesting one. You know, when it comes to Maffy, I held a poll surrounding her regarding how she's able to shoot off laser beams from her mouth. I think Devil Fruit was one of the options, cybernetic enhancements was another one, magic was another one, and there's a fourth option that I'm just kind of blanking on right now. I think it was like transformation power, and I do think that out of all of those options, Devil Fruit is winning. Does that mean she has the Beam Beam no Mi, the Pika Pika no Mi? We have no clue, but I do think it would be interesting if she did have the Pika Pika no Mi, and she does get killed by Garling. We are seeing a lot of recycled Devil Fruits here at God Valley. I mean, hell, in this chapter, we saw that Captain John is sporting a Kid mechanical arm. Does he have the Jika Jika no Mi? And then because he dies, Kid later gets that Devil Fruit? I think so. So maybe Maffy, let's play with the hypothetical, does have the Pika Pika no Mi. And of course, because of this incident, Garling ends up killing her, and then the Pika Pika no Mi later goes to Kizaru. I think that will be pretty damn cool. And speaking of Devil Fruits, another one that people have mentioned, I don't know if we'll get a comment mentioning it here, so I'll go ahead and bring it up now, but Gilbastar. Gilbastar is seen in this chapter, and he only has 2 arms, whereas in his Thriller Bark counterpart, the zombie Gilbastar, and during Kuma's flashback, when we saw Gilbastar 2, he had 4 arms in both of those pages. So people are saying that maybe Gilbastar had the Hana Hana no Mi, Robin's Devil Fruit, and then he died, and then Robin later ate it. I do think that is a pretty cool theory as well. And one more Devil Fruit that we could potentially see on this island, not exactly a repeat, but an interesting thing to mention, has to do with Ganzui. This might sound a little bit silly, but we haven't seen his feet. I know. Feet? What are you talking about, Sai? Well, at Thriller Bark, when Frankie punches Ganzui and knocks him off his rocker, we actually see that he has elephant feet. And it's like, wait, did he have the elephant no Mi and Dr. Hogback just gave him elephant feet post-mortem as well? Or is that simply a augmentation that Hogback and Moria gave him to make him stronger. We don't really know, right? Moria, Dr. Hogback, they are a little bit wacky, but I do think it is an interesting thing to make note of. Like, oh, maybe he did have a mammoth devil fruit, which later went to Jack. Maybe he just straight up had an elephant fruit, or maybe he's just part elephant in general. Or Dr. Hogback and Moria just got a little bit freaky with this guy's design. But yeah, that's another thing I am looking forward to here on this island. But yeah, getting back to the brass tacks, I do think it'd be interesting if Maffey got killed here at this island. And I'm gonna say it right here too. As a Knight of God fan, I do think we will see multiple Knights of God die here too. I mean, hell, look at Rox's crew. Brother, a lot of his crew are dead current day, right? Gonzui, one of them. People think Barbell is dead. Gail Bastara is dead. Captain John is dead. We don't know what's happening with Shiki, but he could be dead. But, you know, he exists in this weird limbo space. But yeah, like, I do think it would make sense if Knights of God end up falling too. Whether it's to Garling, or maybe even Rox after he goes sicko mode when his wife dies. I do not think they are going to leave unscathed. This comment says, it's funny that you said he had the same scream as Spandam. I couldn't help but think of him when Sommers was beating Shaki. It reminded me of when Spandam was doing the same to Robin. Also, giving a speech about how her friends would never make it to her. Yep, I think it's cool. People are also seeing the Spandam connection here. But yeah, when Sommers got knocked through the wall by Rayleigh, he did say, Bogya! Which is exactly what Spandam said the minute Usopp shot him from the Tower of Justice. I'm sure there's more characters who also said Bogya, but it's very rare and far and few between. So, this one says, in the panel where Dragon is carrying Shanks and Shamrock, it looks like Shamrock notices they're being followed. We see him looking over Dragon's shoulder with an exclamation. Maybe it's some kind of indication that he's already got observation hockey. Of course, the exclamation mark and the baby might not be connected, but if it were the case, that would be pretty cool feat for baby Shamrock, especially because he seems to start crying as soon as Maffey picks him up. So maybe he knew that Dragon was a good guy and he was being rescued. But when he got picked up by Maffey, he could sense that she was a bad person. Just a thought. That's interesting. Let me look at that real quick. All right, so I pulled up the panels you were talking about right here, and I'm looking at them right now. As far as the exclamation mark goes, I don't know if that's Shamrock with the exclamation mark. I think it might just be Dragon, because that is when he gets shot. So I think it's Dragon being shocked that he just got pierced through the shoulder. As far as Maffey picking up the baby and then Shamrock starts crying, that could be because the Rocks Pirates just blew up a bunch of people behind them. And of course, because Maffey is missing her lower half. Maybe she regenerated it already. By that point in time, though, that is right after she gets sliced through the gut. It could also be this too, you know, maybe Shamrock does know that Maffey is a bad person, but also it could just be the noise. Like there are a lot of dying screams and explosions going on around them. And then of course, Maffey's also screaming out, what the hell is going on this island? But this is a cool observation though, right? You know, baby Shamrock being that observant, not a bad thought, not a bad thought. This one says, Maffey, being this tall woman with a, parentheses, feather coat is reminding me of a female Doflamingo. We know he wore black glasses as a child that look really similar to the ones she is wearing at God Valley. I know she isn't a Don Quixote since she's from the Satchel family, but I'm wondering if they have some kind of connection. Maybe the glasses are some kind of fashion that is common among CD. That could be it. Another character that has glasses is Sommers. He always wears like blackened glasses. Even in this chapter, there's certain shots of Sommers where Oda makes the glasses transparent so you could see his facial expressions. But yeah, it looks like glasses might just be the fashion up there in the Holy Land. It could be, this sounds a little bit silly, it could be because they're so high up in the sky. Like these guys are literally living on top of a mountain, and they should also be in close proximity with Sunlight Tree Eve. So I'd like to imagine that tree is shining very brightly up there. Granted, we have not seen Sunlight Tree Eve yet, but if it does radiate hella light, that could be one of the reasons why they wear glasses. People are saying that the life of the pirate that Eustace Kid is really based on, real life, sounds exactly like what happened to Captain John in One Piece as well. Another possible connection. Funny you say this. There have been very prolific Kid fans out there, and even Captain John fans out there, that have been saying for the longest time, I just looked up a thread about it. It was like 5 or 6 years ago, and they were like, yo, Captain Kid and Captain John are connected. Look at the epithet. They both have the captain in their titles. And it's like, yo, that sounds silly, but it looks like they might not be wrong. And if you go even farther back, I don't know if anybody's going to mention this later, so I'm going to bring it up now, but Captain Kidd, in real life, I forgot his name, like William Kidd, his dad is Captain John kid. So it's like, wait a minute. Is this really it? Is this what Oda's been doing this entire time? Oh, let me see. Captain John, does he have like an actual island of origin in One Piece? Because if he does, if it's like the South Blue, that would be insane. I'm looking it up right now. John, we do not know where he was actually from. Yes, it does not say. If it said South Blue, which I think is where Kid is from, then that right there I think would just be the nail in the coffin. But yeah, I do like the Captain John and Captain Kid connection. There could be something there. And of course, when it comes to Kid, we do know that he was a rambunctious orphan, and that kind of sounds like something Captain John would do, right? I don't think he'd exactly care about a kid of his. So yeah, maybe he just pumped and dumped at the South Blue, and then boom, we have Kid spawning shortly afterwards. Saint Sommers just being continuously vile while having the chops to back it up is very appealing, and a nice change of pace from the Orochis, Spandams, Flampeys, etc. Sommers is really becoming one of my favorite characters to take up the ever so precious panel space, and I feel the exact same way, brother. My one thing about Sommers, though, is that I hope he gets one W in the series. I just want him to beat somebody notable. I get it, right? Sommers, he clapped Robin. But here's the thing, Robin was trying to free her friends. She wasn't even trying to win. Her whole game plan was essentially to hug Sommers off of Elbaf. So yeah, I don't really put a lot of onus on that fight. I also know that people are saying that, oh, Sommers beat Saul. And it's like, okay, you can feel your way about Saul, but in my opinion, I don't exactly hold Saul to any high standard, right? When I'm talking about fighters in One Piece, I'm not exactly bringing Saul into the conversation. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm not doing that. So yeah, I do want Sommers to win something. Like maybe here at God Valley, he beats Barbell. Maybe he beats Ganzui, which, you could say, oh, we don't really care too much about those guys, but at least it's something, right? It's some formidable Rocks Pirate member. And then hell, even here currently in Elbaf, with Sanji and Zoro going up to the Sun Realm, I feel like they're also gonna beat Sommers. Sommers right now, while he's not a weak character by any means, he's still really sturdy, great devil fruit, regeneration and all, he doesn't exactly have any W's in his belt. And I kind of want him to get at least something. At least something, right? Because I do feel like Sanji and Zoro will beat him at the end of the day. If Zoro fights him, it's cooked. If Sanji fights him, I think Sanji will just unlock Conqueror's Haki. And you could very well disagree with that statement saying, oh, Sanji's never going to get Conqueror's Haki, and that's fair. But I do think when Sanji goes up there and he sees that Sommers has Nami covered in thorns, Robin covered in thorns, and potentially Ripley covered in thorns because Ripley's going after Colin, and Sommers is currently the one shepherding Colin to the ship. It's like, yeah, I do think Sanji is gonna flip out and go crazy. Maybe the Jerma mode activates and then boom, conquers Haki because he's so mad. Just something like that. Or maybe even the power of love is what defeats Sommers. I don't think he's walking out of Elbaf with a W. I really don't. So hopefully here at God Valley, he beats somebody. Give him the Ganzui feat. Give him the Ganzui feat. Saint Maffy, having the sharp teeth and mouth laser, seems strikingly similar to Howling Gab and his non-canon powers from Film Red. Also, his and Shanks' Celestial Dragon relation could be very similar in nature to both of them rejecting their nobility. That's interesting. I did think of Howling Gab when I saw Saint Maffy. Howling Gab is interesting. I don't remember if it was like an actual beam or if it was like a sound wave, but yes, Howling Gab did have laser powers. I have seen people arguing about this, funny enough, saying, oh, Howling Gab, his attack wasn't canon. But at the same time, it's like, I get it, right? It came out and debuted in Film Red, but you gotta imagine, right? Oda is somewhat a part of the Film Red creation process. The guy who made Film Red, mind you, knows the ending of One Piece. He knows the future plot points. He's one of Oda's editors. If he just inserted something that's not canon, like straight up not canon, I would be very shocked. And then, of course, Oda did release Volume 4 Billion, which listed a bunch of other abilities from Oda that we haven't seen in the movie, like Shanks' observation canceling, the whole Yasopp being the chaser, Lucky Roo being the fastest on the crew despite being so big. Like, yeah, I do think Howling Gab having laser powers or beam powers or a shout wave, I kind of consider this canon. Is that foul? Maybe. That's my opinion, but I do put onus there. And another thing about Film Red as well that I do want to mention is that this film is when we first got the Garland name drop. And guess what? That became canon, right? That is Shanks' actual last name. That is his family. Before he met Garling, before he met Shamrock or anything, boom, the Fagarland name drop with Shanks and Uta, which of course Uta's not a Fagarland, but they just gave it to her because she's Shanks' daughter. Another thing that I do want to bring up is Bluno and Khalifa. At first, Oda himself said that he did not exactly like the idea of Bluno and Khalifa being a part of CP0, but after Film Red's director decided on it, Oda came around to the idea and he made it canon. And not just that, but he brought the rest of CP9 and made them CP0 as well, which we saw during the Reverie. So yes, you could say there's like this inverse effect where if Film Red did it, there's a good chance Oda will do it too, especially since the people who worked on Film Red, like I said, are his close friends and editors. So as far as Howling Gap being related to a celestial dragon, I'm iffy on that one, right? The sharp teeth, we have seen sharp teeth before outside of celestial dragon families. A great example would be Dellinger. Maybe not the best example, but Dellinger is one. There's also Barto. That's another one. So sharp teeth, I don't think automatically makes Howling Gap a celestial dragon. Would it be cool though? Yeah, I don't think the chance is zero. I think that would be kind of nice. You know, Shanks has the reject celestial dragons on his crew. That'd be nice. And honestly, like, I do want Shanks' group to fight the Holy Knights for the most part. So maybe Howling Gap, if Matthew's still alive, will be her opponent. I saw someone say that Captain John used Kid's fruit to attract treasure, adding it to his collection. Not sure if it would work that way, but it would be hella cool. Yeah, I don't mind that. Not every piece of treasure, jewelry, or gem would be magnetic, but it'd be a nice tidbit. You know, maybe he just goes to an island and just says, attract! And then, you know, he gets all the treasure and then he just leaves. That'd be nice. Also, I would say this though. Captain John, if he does have Kid's devil fruit, him dying to a mutiny is even more silly because he gets stabbed with like I think 10 swords and it's like, brother, repel, dude, repel the swords, man. What are you doing? Maybe he was caught off guard, you know, he thinks he has a bunch of friends near him and they all just stab him in the back and he doesn't activate his fruit in time, but still, man, it makes it a little bit silly. Captain John, what are you doing? Also, here's a good question. I asked Brago this on the side, but do you guys think that Captain John is awakened? Brago said yes. I personally don't know. Like, I wish we had his bounty. You know, if he had a bounty over like 1 billion, I'd be like, yeah, you know, sure, he's awakened. Which, of course, bounty scaling is always tough in One Piece, but, you know, if you're over 1 billion, I assume you're a pretty competent fighter. But yeah, Captain John, is he awakened, yes or no? I'd love to hear you guys' opinions. This says Sanji's doing what to Pudding? He's holding her close. And with that, we have to wonder, man, when Sanji learns about Pudding being abducted by Blackbeard, what is the fallout going to be, right? The Straw Hats, they're ride or die for their friends. Pudding is one of their friends. Yes, she betrayed them for a little bit, but by the time we left Whole Cake Island, she was on good terms with the Straw Hats and Sanji. So if Sanji or Luffy hears about Pudding being kidnapped, I do think that they might want to rescue her. Best dragon moment is when he calls up Garp Dad. Yeah. The interaction off of the island, I think, is gonna go crazy. This says, mark my words, Emu is going to possess Gunko and arrive at God Valley, and that will be why Garp hates to talk about it, why a dragon won't make a move until the Knights of God do, and why God Valley was, quote, erased from history. I only say that because Emu isn't even supposed to be known about, so Emu showing up anywhere to handle any situation would be a situation fit for being erased from history and not talked about. Yeah, I think this is a pretty common mindset. I held a poll about Emu arriving to God Valley, and more people voted yes than no. You know, which is pretty crazy, right? I think that was even before the Gunko reveal. Like, people just kind of assumed that Emu was going to show up. We have all these players here. We got Garp, we got Dragon, we got Rox, and Roger. It's like, yeah, Emu needs to show up and just display their power. As far as God Valley being erased, I think this is interesting because when Shamrock was talking to his wife, or, you know, his girl, he did say that this island will cease to exist soon. So it looks like before Emu even arrives, they kind of knew that this island was going to be deleted already. Of course, he could be just talking about the inhabitants, but I do put a lot of onus on that one right there. And then another thing about God Valley being, quote, erased, we do have to go back to when Shanks first met Whitebeard. Shanks brought sake from his hometown in the West Blue How is that possible? You know, like Shanks was born at God Valley is missing, yet Shanks acquired sake from God Valley. Does the island still exist somewhere? I do think that's a pretty good question. I do want to hold a poll in that later. Just what happens to God Valley and how was Shanks able to acquire sake from his hometown if his hometown isn't supposed to be there anymore? Imagine they covered up Kurozumi Kanjuro's betrayal just to keep the legend of the 9 scabbards pristine. I could see that. We did have that hint of a Kurozumi name drop in the cover page, and a lot of people are saying, oh, Sai could just be Kanjuro, and I do like that idea a lot. Like, oh, yes, he was a really bad guy in the end, but that doesn't exactly negate all the good times we had with Kanjuro and how many times he actually did help us out. I think that'd be pretty tragic, but yes, I think Kanjuro is probably the only candidate that would fit on the list of heroes. This says, on the magic looking book that Imu has on Elbaf has a name on it that looks like Eris D. Tar. Kinda wild that we just learned Blackbeard's mother's name is Eris. Wonder if there's gonna be some connection or parallel or what have you. Can't wait to see where this goes. Yes, I did see this. People were talking about this back when Imu first arrived on Elbaf. The magic circle had Eris D. Tar on there. And, you know, it's tough, right? It could be something, it could be nothing. It's like when the Gorosei first arrived on Egghead. Minus the giant numbers like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, there were magic sigils and lettering around those circles, and people tried to translate it, people tried to decipher it, and then I think we all kind of just surmised that it was, you know, gobbledygook. You know, it was just something to look cool and flashy on paper, kind of like the poneglyphs. I don't know if you guys ever noticed, but if you follow the poneglyphs from panel to panel or chapter to chapter, the text on the poneglyph usually changes, and I think that's because Oda, you know, doesn't exactly have a written language for that in mind yet. You know, he didn't exactly do a good translation on it, which is fair, right? Because it is a pretty lengthy wall of text. So when it came to Eris D. Tar first being mentioned with Imu, I thought that was really cool, but at the same time, I didn't want to put any stocks into it because it could just be, you know, Oda putting in cool lettering, and then we kind of just pulled this out of thin air. But now that we do have Blackbeard's mom on the island being named Eris, it's like, oh, like maybe this is a legitimate connection. But if it is, I don't know where we go with that, right? Gonko doesn't exactly have a connection with Eris. I don't think Imu has a connection with Eris, so it's hard to tell. I think this is one of those theories, and I say this pretty often with ones like this, but I think this is one we put in our back pocket and we let it marinate, right? We'll see if any more connections come out of this, because right now I'm not too sure how this would all connect it. Kind of like what you said, right? I'm on the same boat as you, brother. Where does this go? At least Gabon and Roger got their chance with even better girls. Gabon, yes. I think Ripley is my preferred one over Shaki. Roger and Portgas de Rouge. I'm not a big Rouge fan. I don't know if that's a hot take, but if I had to power scale Ripley, Shaki, and Rouge, I'd put Ripley number 1, Shaki number 2, and I think Rouge would be like number 5. Yeah, I think Rouge would be like number 5. No offense to the Rouge fans out there, but she's just not my type. This one says, the girl hiding her eyes, it's just her character design. It's the same for Bogart, as we never see his eyes as well. Okay, for Bogart, though, he's supposed to be like this incognito spy. For the Man Meyer girl, like, I don't know. Like, she doesn't strike me as an incognito spy. I mean, maybe it is the design. You know, we could equate this to CP0, how they all have the mask. And then for the ones on Wano, we never saw their faces. You know, Joseph, Guernica, Maha. We don't know what's under those masks, brother. We do not know. So maybe that is what Oda's going for, but it just seems so convoluted. I don't know. This one says, Garling is 100% going to interact and fight with Whitebeard. That's why we hear the line he said to Shanks all those chapters ago pre-time skip. To be honest, I feel like this chapter, despite the chaos, is the calm before the storm. As Sai pointed out, Rayleigh hasn't used Advanced Conqueror's Haki to attack Sommers, so he will obviously regenerate and give Roger a surprise. Yep, I do still believe that we are at the beginning of God Valley. There's still a lot to come. I've heard a lot of people saying, you know, where's this character? Where's that character? Why hasn't this guy done anything yet? And it's like, brother, we are just one chapter in my opinion. I do think we'll be here for at least 3 to 4 more weeks. Sai, hitting his bingo prediction of us readers getting God Valley in 2025 was right on the mark, and I honestly didn't believe in Sai's prediction that it would come true. I feel like the Kinemon meme right now. I don't think I made this prediction. Let me pull up my bingo sheet real quick. Okay, so I'm looking at my bingo sheet here on the side, and I'm not doing good, brother. You know, I think I have 2 out of 25 correct? And God Valley wasn't one of them. I don't remember saying we'd get God Valley this year. Maybe I did and I forgot, but you know, I'll take the random W that I do not deserve. This one says, I swear someone on Shanks' crew has the same power, mouth beam, and kind of looks like sharp teeth as Maffy. Howling Gab, was it? Yes, Howling Gab. This one says, Dragon's backstory will be one for the books. This is where he will establish himself as the most wanted man in the verse. Competing ideologies from his old man will definitely collide, and it will be the straw that breaks the camel's back, that in which will make the oath not to only go against his own father's ideology and morals, but the powers that be. Yeah, you know, and if you like Dragon's story, I think this is a big W, which, to be fair, we kind of knew Dragon was this character already. And, you know, personally, I'm not the biggest fan of, like, the revolutionary plotline, but, you know, I do respect the people that do like it. You know, I think this is a massive thing, and I'm excited to see how it develops. You know, I am excited to see what Dragon does afterwards. I do still think that after God Valley, he will still be a Marine. I think he'll be a Marine for at least a couple more years, and then he'll eventually quit. I don't think he quits right away. I might hold a poll on that too. You know, I'm getting a lot of poll ideas from this video. So now the last comment says, Gaimon's chest came from God Valley. Confirmed. Maffy probably got sacked by Garling for only saving one son. John having kids' power is also nuts. Yep. Gaimon's chest being from God Valley is kind of crazy. Dude, Gaimon getting nothing from that treasure chest is absolutely foul. He waited all those years to just go up that stupid cliff only to realize that there's nothing up there. But that is it for today, guys. Let me know what you thought about all these comments and theories down below, and I will catch you guys in the next One Piece video. 1162 is literally right around the corner. I believe the spoilers drop tomorrow, so yeah, we are rolling, brother. We are rolling in that God Valley gold. Until then, though, you guys take care, peace out, and stay safe, brothers. Also, real quick, just have to hop in. I need to start doing these like in the middle of the video. But if you have the time, I also have a gaming channel here on the side over at Syvduck, SYVDUCK here on YouTube and over on Twitch. Feel free to check me out there. That's where I play all my games, do commentary, drop random stuff, etc. I would really appreciate it if you guys gave that a follow. And also, I have an anime reaction channel over at Somnus Reacts here on YouTube as well, where I react to One Piece and anything else that catches my fancy. With that being said, I will truly see you guys later. Peace.